What are some things that men then do as allies to carry forward? So it's not a once and done. What are some behaviors that we can take away that make this behavior sustainable?
Yeah, so it's a constant focus. This is a new muscle for me. Like I said, a year ago is when I was approached to participate in getting men more involved and supporting women in leadership. And if I'd have been asked to do this a year ago, I would have been, oh, absolutely not. I don't know what to say. I'm terrified to say anything. And here I am a year later, and I'm on a panel talking about it. And so it's not a once and done. It's a muscle. Something that I recently took on, talking about race in the workplace for me is very uncomfortable. I was approached by our Black Employee Network employee resource group, and they said, hey, John, I think I'm getting the reputation of saying yes to everything, by the way, but they're like, hey, John, we want a white male privileged person on this panel to talk about Charlottesville. This just happened a few weeks ago, and I was honored to be approached. I said, absolutely, I'm on board. I'm doing this because I want to get really comfortable talking about race in the workplace. And so I'm in a room with about 50 of my colleagues. Many of them are black, arms are crossed, and I'm looking at them, and I'm thinking, oh crap. There's got to be an easier way to get more comfortable talking about race in the workplace. And so my advice is throw yourself out there, just go for it, and keep the muscle, keep working it. Even today, I was talking with Angela, who's busy writing down a lot of action items for me, I think. She's my partner in this, but a gentleman at our table was explaining something to her, and she said something like what or something, and I mansplained it to her, and she just immediately called me out on it. And so, I mean, even as much as I'm into this, I still have to keep working the muscle as well.
So one of the things we did as an organization is we formed a gender equity committee. And from the beginning, it was a popular committee. And when we had the committee meetings, they were really well attended. And guess what the audience attendees looked like? They looked like women, with a couple of men here and there. And so my friend Rachana, who helped, leader who helped organize this movement, and I talked a lot about, and he really provided some encouragement. And we took some steps to forge men's entry into the conversation. So we actually held an event down in Redwood City in which the only participants on the panel were men to talk about gender equity and what it meant to be allies. And I think that was kind of forward movement at the time. Was a few years ago. Rachana Sharpnack, who was here a few minutes ago, I think she may have stepped out, was involved with us in organizing that event. So, have the conversation. Don't be afraid to have it. It may be a little uncomfortable for people at times, but once you get people started talking about this, one of the things you find that men, like women, we all have our experiences, and there's a lot to learn from that, and it tends to have the effect of people wanting to step forward. The other thing was, again, what Victor said was, think in advance about what you're doing. And we encourage organizations. That's why we put out the best practice guide, so that you can read on BayAreaEconomy.org. So we put out a guide that's a great compilation of things companies are doing to move the needle in this area, and it's really been a step up for us. And now we're doing another report on family-friendly policies with the likes of the Silicon Valley Community Foundation and the Packard Foundation, and that'll come out later this year. So step out in front, have the conversation, and certainly be thinking in advance about the move. So when you're hiring somebody, think about the opportunity to hire women into leadership before you ask yourself the question, why didn't we do it?
And those reports that Jim mentioned are at the website BayAreaCouncil.org.
Or BayAreaEconomy.org, which is our sister organization.
Or BayAreaEconomy.org. There's some fantastic information there, and it sounds like you're always doing more research, so check them out. I'm going to jump into something that, John, you brought up Charlottesville. I went to UVA undergrad, and so I appreciated you bringing up Charlottesville, and also something you both touched on, which is how willing are men to be part of something that might expose vulnerability. So in a recent Catalyst study of how to engage men, I'm looking at my figure here, 74% of men interviewed had real fears of getting involved in gender equality. And John, you also now brought up another point of diversity around race. And the masculine norms that came up about why men are fearful, and we've been talking about toxic masculinity. The first is making mistakes, saying the wrong thing. The second is losing status and privilege. And the third is other men's disapproval. Do any of those three resonate or sound like barriers that we should be considering as we take forward what we've learned today to get more men involved?
Yeah, I touched on it earlier, but you have to make mistakes. When I was contacted to be a part of this, I thought I would talk to Ray, and I was explaining to him what Angela and I are up to, and he would give me the book and go, oh, dude, we already figured this out. Here's the recipe book. Here's how you do it. Obviously, we're in one of the most liberal places on the planet, and we're still having these discussions today. And so we've made mistakes, and we are constantly course correcting on how we can improve how we're getting the word out and getting men more involved. And we're a bit frustrated as well. We participated today. We had free tickets to give out, and we advertised a lot. On my out of office today, I put where I'm at, and I put the website and everything, because everyone's very supportive, but I got to see it. Come to these things. Show me that you're supportive. Don't just tell me. That doesn't count.
Yeah, I was afraid of all those things. I was reticent to get involved, and Ray encouraged me, and I went through a lot of gobbledygook about maybe why not, and then eventually stepped in, and it was really rewarded by a lot of folks, men and women, who thought it was really important and timely for us to do this. So I was absolutely sure this had nothing to do with any privilege that I held as a man. And I'm absolutely sure that I was wrong in thinking that as well. So it's easy to think, it's very convenient for men to think that it's some other thing than that until you really explore it. And given the work that we've done over the last couple of years, and the myriads of speakers that we've had and the exposure we've had to the issues, and we've been really fortunate to be part of this work and this experience. I've learned a lot, and I think opened up a lot to it. But it doesn't happen right away. I think it's a process we go through.
Yeah, no, I'm going to weave two themes from two speakers earlier based on what you both have just mentioned. And the first is Victor talking about being an ally in advance and being intentional up front. And it sounds like, just based on what you both said, that wasn't necessarily the case. So we have some fabulous examples up here, these two gentlemen, of great allyship that wasn't done in advance. So I would call to all of you to be intentional and what additional great things can happen. But the other thing that I wanted to mention is I intentionally brought up your family, and specifically that you both have daughters, in the intro. That is information you can find on the website, certainly about Jim, but it was what you, John, when we met, you introduced yourself as why this is important. And I want to go back to something that Michael Kimmel talked about this morning, which I talk a lot about, unconscious advocacy. That's basically what came out of my research at Columbia, which is that men play natural roles as allies. And Michael Kimmel said that every man has a genetic connection to a woman. So can you talk a little bit about how having a daughter, in just this example, or any other connection you have to a woman through natural relationships, has reinforced and strengthened your position?